from this workshop we can open another door into the world of science, that a schizophrenic is us, not them, because we don't understand the process of the creation.
This is the fourth Knowledge Seekers workshop, and we have Mehran Kesh and the Knowledge Seekers of the Spaceship Institute from Italy, and we have them on the line, and let's get right into talking with them and finding out what's the latest news and developments at the Spaceship Institute.
Hello, good morning to all. I'm Jorge, the Spanish Knowledge
Good morning.
Seekers. We are now in the table, except Yukako and Armen, that we hope will join us in a minute, like always. We have advanced in the working of the reactor this week. I can say now I'm building mine, at least. I have problems in the engineering lab because I don't have experience in this field, but I'm getting used to make the things for myself. We have good teachers, so now I'm on the run to get my own reactor. This is double core with copper inside and plastic outside. It's the good part of my reactor is that have window in it, so I expect to see different things visually. So my hope is that I can see the plasma and learn from my side. This is the best part of my reactor. So that's the news in my part. I pass the other knowledge seekers to tell about the news in the process.
Thank you.
Hello, John speaking. I have been working on my system. I'm preparing, in fact, well, seems that some I have two cores possible and two different ways because of the broken system. Hope I'll be able to make at least one of them work. So I'll still have to make the connections and well, for the tubings and so on. But normally I should be able to go on. I have pieces prepared to work, and the pieces are in bronze, I think. It's a copper alloy anyway for the ends, and I suppose you'll see soon pictures of what I have.
Thank you for that update, John.
Okay, well, I'll pass to the next knowledge seeker.
Good day, Marek speaking. Together with Armen, we have prepared our reactor, double core reactor. Is almost ready to be run. So next week we supposed to fill it and begin the plasma opening process and learning opportunity as well for us. And we will share everything with you, of course. We plan to do online broadcasting from lab, so you can look forward to stay in touch with us, with our work. Yes, maybe it will be online all the time. We have to figure out the technical steps now. So, or you can watch our progress online. And other reactors are also being in preparation phase. So we expect to have few reactors running at the same time and experience the interaction between different plasmas of the reactors to get more insight into the action of plasma. So you are welcome to have a look at our experiments. We will publish all the details how to watch us on our Facebook Spaceship Institute channel, and you can follow us. I will pass the mic to the next knowledge seeker for the news from him.
So good morning and good evening or whatever to all the audience. First of all, I would like to thank you to the group who is organizing these workshops, especially to Rick and Vincent and Ludmil and also other people in the background. Thank you very much that you're organizing this. You're big help and big support. So as also other colleagues told, we are progressing with our work. Last week we somehow finished our nanomaterial and GANs production, and we supplied this material to Yukoko, who went to Japan, and he's there. She's there, and with all the material that she took with her. So we are expecting the testings in different organizations in Japan, and we will try to publish these results also as soon as possible to the public. So this week we were mostly working on our reactors, and we were still extracting GANs material from our setup with salt solution. Today the main topic will be we'll talk about health section of the technology. If I remember correctly, there will be talk about schizophrenic disease, which actually is not disease, it's normal condition of the person, or normal condition of the brain. And we will try to explain in a way how the brain works that came into the condition of so-called schizophrenia. Okay, That's all for starting from my side. I'll pass the mic to Ivan.
Thank you, Marco.
Hello, good morning, good evening. I'm Ivan, the knowledge seeker from Belgium.
Nice to meet
Okay,
you.
hello. Hello, everybody. I was thinking that the main topic I would like to mention today is safety. Because as we are here, Mr. Keshe is almost constantly warning us to take our precautions, to like with the nanomaterials, to wear gloves. If the gloves are contaminated, to remove them and take new gloves. That you don't take touch a door handle with contaminated gloves and then next touch a door handle without gloves, and then put your finger in your mouth, for instance, things like that. And also when the reactors will be running, to keep at a safe distance. And I felt that, when you're experimenting at home and you have not Mr. Keshe standing next to you to tell you these things, that you still need to be aware of it, because as Mr. Keshe put it, we are on the edge of science. And when you think about 100 years ago, Marie Curie and Pierre Curie also, discovering radioactivity, also being on the edge of science and dying because of it. And just recently it was in the news that because of the 100th birthday, that the diary of Marie Curie is still so radioactive that it cannot be touched, and it will take another couple of thousand years, I guess, before it is safe. And as Mr. Keshe was explaining, the early scientists who were working with radioactive material had buckets of plutonium and other radioactive materials standing in the corridor, and they also died because of the radiation, simply because they were not aware of the dangers. So that's just something I wanted to stress, because since you have not Mr. Keshe standing next to you, be aware of those dangers and keep yourself as safe as possible.
Thank you. I also agree that that's a very important point. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
You could ask to Ivan about his own reactor, because it's very interesting and he's building in a record time. We are very impressed. So maybe you can ask. And also medical things about today. All the things you can address your questions to Ivan, because he is the best in asking medical part.
Yeah, I think with all the medical questions, it's a little early. Maybe in a few months. But concerning the reactor, I have not had the time to post a lot, but I took a lot of pictures. And it's my intention in the next couple of days to write a Word document, with all the explanation, what I did, how I did it, and with all the pictures, and then it can be put on the Facebook page. Now, what's different in my reactor when you compare it to the others is that Mr. Keshe gave me a pot container which surrounds the motor. So I put the motor in that container at Mr. Keshe's suggestion, and the reactor itself, which sits above the motor, or the double core which sits above the motor, is separated from the motor by a thick nylon plate, and so the container which is under the nylon plate, which holds the motor, is also, it has a connection to vacuum it, and once it's vacuumed, it will be loaded with hydrogen, and Mr. Keshe says that the reactor will be able to supply itself with hydrogen through the motor. So there will only be we isolate it as much as possible, but obviously the motor is not completely sealed from the reactor, and so the reactor will be able to take the hydrogen as it is needed, Mr. Keshi said. So what I will do is in the next couple of days, write all that down, put all my the photographs that I took step by step as I assembled the reactor, and then you will be able to see it. Now I will be away next week just for 5 days actually. So, but I guess I will be pretty much on par with the construction of the other reactors, and so we can pretty much start it up together the week after that. Any questions about that?
No, you can see the same content almost a year ago in my page.
Okay, well that is mostly what I had to tell you right now. So I will pass the microphone to.
Here a very short
before
question.
you pass the microphone. Sorry.
Say that again.
Yes, a very short question. Hydrogen is highly explosive. So if we encapsulate the motor into the container with the reactor, any spark or, electromagnetical discharge will probably cause an explosion. So we may want to think how we can avoid that.
Yeah, but it's vacuumed first, and so there is no oxygen. So
That's
without
right.
oxygen,
The hydrogen's only explosive when combined with oxygen from 4% up to 96% or something like that.
Okay, so we will wait for the pictures and the material.
You can make a hydrogen light bulb, for example, by passing high voltage through it and actually ionizing the hydrogen.
I was going to ask what kind of cores are you creating?
The core is also a plastic half sphere sitting on top, and another metal. We are planning to copper coat it before nano coating it. A sphere sitting inside. The outer plastic half sphere is static; it's not moving, and the inner half sphere is rotating, magnetically coupled. So the motor is on top of the motor are two magnets, and these two magnets pass the motion through a plastic plate. There's no hole in that plastic plate, but there's another circular plastic plate on a ball bearing sitting on top of it, and so that, which also contains two magnets, so that plastic plates would start to rotate together with the motor without a mechanical connection, and that plastic plate is carrying the inner container, the metal container, which should then be copper and nano coated. Okay, sorry. So I'll just repeat.
I have a question.
Then, yeah. Go ahead.
So you wrap the motor inside a container, a nylon container, did you say?
Plastic anyway.
Plastic. Inside. I mean, you put the motor inside a plastic container, and then you vacuum it, and then you put hydrogen in there. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The plastic containers, it looks a little bit like a yogurt, a big yogurt pot, but it's a lot sturdier.
And then somehow the hydrogen can feed into the reactor when needed. Is that what you said?
Yes, because in the middle is a thick nylon plate with a round hole in it. The pot with the motor is hanging underneath, and then the half sphere reactor, which is also made out of plastic, is static. It's not moving. It's sitting on top. And so the motor is just sticking in that hole, sealed around it. But obviously, through the shaft, gases can pass. And so since the upper part and the lower part containing the motor will be vacuumed, there will be no loss of vacuum, hopefully, if there's no leak somewhere. And obviously I had to bring the electrical wires of the motor through the container and seal it properly. And there is a vacuum valve on the lower part, and obviously a vacuum valve on the upper part, which will be, that's the difficult part to construct, two concentric feeding pipes, one for the inner core and one for the outer core. Okay, thank you. So I'll pass the mic to Armin.
Hello, everybody. Okay. We finished actually one reactor, and today or tomorrow we're going to close it down. And actually we are ready to load it up. And next reactor that we are doing with Jorge, it's a 2-core reactor. 1 core actually rotating, and 2nd core is stable. We're gonna send some pictures actually to Rick that you can put in a workshop, that work we done. It's all glued inside nanomaterial, nano-coated copper. And actually we are ready to load that one too next week. So we're gonna have 8 reactors, no, actually 6 reactors running. We're going to have all the videos posted as soon as possible. Any questions?
Just a stupid one.
I just arrived. I'm waking up. I'm sorry, guys. I went bed 2:30, so every day I'm going bed 2:30 because it's impossible.
You guys sleep? Really?
Partially, yeah. With one eye.
One eye open, yeah.
One eye open.
Okay, it's just a stupid question. Did you ever try to solder the copper foil you create?
Solder?
Yeah, instead of using glue to solder it for the copper or whatever reactor is.
This is what we said from the beginning. Nanomaterials cannot be soldered. We have tried welding, we tried soldering, we've tried every possible way. The only way nanomaterial coated like the wires can be joined is by literally twisting the material over each other. So in the future, it'll be literally like a press job on top of each other without penetrating the layers. So you cannot glue it. You cannot, we tried everything for past 5 or 6 years. It's impossible to weld it because it's a diamond structure, and diamond structures cannot be locked together or welded together. So it's for the future for us to find a way except physical contact. The other thing which the knowledge seekers we've done here is that we are in the process of maybe next week and the week after gradually building it up to run 7 double core reactors simultaneously on the floor of the lab. This has never been done before. So in reality, we have 14 cores condition, and then you can multiply that in what is happening, plus multiply the gases, variation of 4 or 5 gases. We will have a very good test platform for how the universe works with different materials. We have 3 half moons. I have to tell you this, that we will bring the reactor which was built for energy as a center point, as a star, or we will bring the Iranian space reactor as a star into the system, which means we will have systems which are both, one of them is free floating in the air, and any field can affect its movement and its position. As I said to the knowledge seekers, they will choose the position of the reactors in respect to each other. So we have the capability and ability to replicate the full solar system within the next 2 weeks in the lab. We can create conditions. We know how Venus works, rotates opposite direction. We have the knowledge to create the same condition too. So most probably the Iranian reactor will become the star, because we know its capabilities and it's worked before in that direction, but the nuclear material now is non-nuclear. We test it. We run one of the reactors hanging, which is the peace, what do you call it, world peace reactor, we call it, the energy reactor. Then we have 2 half-moon reactors, which these are stable reactors for lift and motion. They don't change polarity, so you get a stability. The Iranian space reactor is a half-moon combination, so it works very similar because it's flown before, it's lifted before, and it has reduced weight before, so we know the performance with nuclear. This time we're going to a non-nuclear condition. Then we have the ceramic cores of John. Even though one of them is broken pot, it'll be very interesting if it flies. And then we'll see how 14 combination, 4 or 5 gases will perform. We will not show you only the good part, we'll show you the failure parts. You will see the good and bad and the ugly together. So you will learn how you do your reactors, but we will set up most probably exact condition as the solar system. Then we can understand fully how every planet in the solar system works and how they condition themselves, and we go to the next step and we learn together.
Just to clarify myself, my idea was the solder to be at the back of the plates, so you are able to solder it for the core.
No, you cannot do.
You
cannot do. There are 2 different materials. If you solder to back of the core, you solder to that material, not to the nanomaterial. Nanomaterial is a separate layering. If you touch the nanomaterial and your copper, you will see what exactly I mean. This doesn't work that way. It does not, because you want the current and the voltage and the field within the nano layers, not in the material. In the reactors, I think OK is running. We have an electrode placed in to understand the condition and the current magnetic gravitational flow in the core. These tests have been done years ago, so we know how the potential of the system is. There is no heat development, that's why we use plastic cores. The core which Iwan is using, we set it up deliberately. This is a long hauled feed system, which means the reserve tank is within the structure itself. As plasma or energy is released from the reactor through the cavity, between the motors, which is very minute, the gas will seep through at the outer layer. And so a constant pressure is kept. This has been tested. We know the effectiveness of it. We know exactly how it works. So
I want to interrupt just a second on what Ludmil said. There are some conductive rubber in other words, rubber doped with silver or carbon, that could be put between two nanolayers and with a very gently mechanical force for not destroying
we
the
can't do that on a copper wire. You can't do that on a what do you call it?
Thank you.
That kind of thing you cannot do. It's a part of the development. So what we think it should be done, or I think it should be in the long run to be done, when we have the next group of the knowledge seekers and we create a different environment, is that we allow people around the world to come in and bring their reactors to join the universal system. So maybe in a year or 2 years we have 40, 50, 100 reactors. Anybody can come in and bring their reactors and see how it affects the positioning. Because through this system we understand the work of the galaxies and the universe, not by theoretical calculation. So people like WINS or the other people who build reactors around the world, you can make like a month visit to the center, bring your reactors and put it in the core and see what happens in the structure. I'm looking at the site that such a thing can be done, so it's a negotiation with the what do you call it, officials and the people that we can do the process. So in next few months, all of you who build a reactor or wants to perform with it or see how the universe works, you pay a visit to us and you bring your reactors and you put it on the floor. We try to make arrangement that it can be done. And you see how your reactor affects the condition, and we understand the work of the galaxies and the universe. This is in the next 6 to 12 months, this is very, actually is possible to be done. On the aspects of the copper oxides, which is gone to Tokyo with Yokoko and other things, which we gave her 4 or 5 different options of testing. We are not looking for success in every case. We are looking mainly for the failures to find out where we failed and where it doesn't work. And if the whole test fails, there is no problem, because it means we haven't managed to produce nanomaterial the right way in the structure. So the whole thing is we look at the failures, not the successes, because if we succeed, we already calculated it. We got to look at where we failed, where the system did not work, even in our lab with the reactors, and trying to find an answer for it. But the whole position is, as I said to the knowledge seekers last week, very interesting position happened. I explained it to you before. These guys worked nearly 2 weeks making all these copper wires and making all these orange cup containers and everything. And as I said to you, they connected everything, and the motor would not run, the light would not come up, and they walked out of the lab like a broken army, one at a time in different ways. As looking at it was a failure, it did not produce any energy. But the next day, the result of that test, because things takes time, and you work on a very, very small voltage current magnetic gravitational field, the product of that failure to them was the material which is now in Fukushima on Sunday getting tested. So what it looks to you as a failure, or it doesn't work, it seems that you haven't understood the condition. So do not expect you turn a motor and you see a result. Find out what it does. Bring something else. So as I said in our talks, we will run 2 radios at the same time within the structure of the solar system to see when the radios get cut off and which direction they get cut off. We will we have radiation detectors. We leave them all the time on, that any radiation flow we can detect. Even though we can't see it, but most probably we will see the results by cutting off the radio frequency. The radio frequency cutoff has been tested, but the way the drone was captured by the Iranians, you cut the whole communication line with the expansion of the fields. Then the object within it with the radio becomes part of your structure, because your field of your reactor is in control. So we know these things, and I think next few weeks will be a very interesting time for the knowledge seekers on the world to see a real working solar system, which is double core, both gravitational magnetic field in every system prevailing. I think boys from NASA and boys from Iranian Space Agency and boys from Russian Space Agency and the rest will be very interesting watching this, because it's never been done. And we have set out to lead the space technology, and we've done it with the materials. Now we show it with the space technology in reactors. On the other hand, as I said, they were producing the material which went to, to Fukushima with our colleague Yukoko. I built the system last week from my experience, which this system produces nothing but protein. So the system is a 48 set combination, and all it does, it produces oxygen and protein. So more or less all the 48 cages, I don't know if you put the picture up. There is one video from last week. Yeah, with a lot more is getting done. You can see layers of fat, protein continuously being produced on the water. This is a specific way of setting up your wires. It's a specific procedure to produce protein, and in this system which I set up, we get the light, LED lights still shining, very little. And this is how protein is produced in the body, with a very little amount of energy conversion from gas to GaNs, which is the heat temperature of the body. We show that heat temperature as a light in the LED. And the material, which is a fat, and we have picked up some of it, and on Monday is going to a lab which is going to test to explain to us what this protein is made of. It's a continuous production. We take it off, we see it coming back on. We saw fat production in the first setup on 1 or 2 containers. In the boxes of orange and yellow color from which is copper oxide and CO2 was created, we have seen the, some amount of fat too. But in the first setup, we have start seeing a creation of blood. This happens because one of the 2 or 3 of the electrodes have contained iron in the connection line, where they use what they call connectors, which has iron in it. So iron has interacted with the fat in that container with a low amount of energy. It's become exactly like blood. It's red spots. We will take that to the lab for analysis. So in a way, we have shown how blood can be produced in a very normal way, in a natural way, if it's correct, and if it's not, we go further, because I talked to Marco about a week, 2 weeks ago, to put an iron pin in where the fat is, to see how iron converts the fat and connection with the iron into the blood. And by coincidence, we've seen it because there was a same process that we now got few splashes of red material, which is like a blood, into containers. These all be posted by Marco. We call it a spy cameraman. He's always everywhere taking pictures and be doing the what you call the seed process testing. We will start next week or so. We have enough facilities here to start using the GaNs we have as a fertilizers to start the seeding of the corn and wheat here on the premises, and we show it on a daily basis. I presume they will post it for you. We have a huge knowledge in the growth of these things, which done by our colleagues at Keshe Foundation over past 2 or 3 years. He's done an immaculate job measuring the time of the soaking and the rest. So the food production will be, the agriculture will come in now that we have the materials running. And the rest, we will see how it comes and how we will go ahead with the whole situation. Any questions?
I have a question. Yes, I have a question. The reactors that you place in your lab, is it you place them on the ground? Is it going to float up?
I I think we're going to go on the floor, because if there is anything wrong, they fall off the table and they damage. So we will have one hanging, and maybe we place the others in different heights and position. We try to keep 3-120 configuration for flight in mind. 3 reactors have to stay in that position. That we can we can achieve on the flight plate, which we have a flight condition. So we just got to see how far we go. Don't forget, at the moment we are working with non-nuclear. This non-nuclear is an unknown territory. We have had a success rate reduction and production of energy on the system which was brought in, and we showed it in 21st of April. That system has inherent problems of holding vacuum. We understand it because the manufacturers did a total disaster. As they couldn't keep it sealed, they turned the reactor upside down. So where it was supposed to be for feeding, now it's gone to the bottom of the system. So it has created problems which was unforeseen in design, but it's the only way they could keep the vacuum in the system. So it has become a problematic reactor, where we realized later on what the guy has done. He's turned the whole system 180 degrees, and it was not set up to function this way, but we have to live with it.
That's the Italian company, right, you're talking about?
No, it's a Belgium. This was manufactured in Belgium.
Oh, okay. Not the Italian one. So,
the Italian
are you expecting
one carry on, Mr. Chu.
Sorry?
Carry on.
Oh, are you expecting the reactors, once you activate them, are you expecting them to levitate at all, or are they going to stay where they are?
We don't levitate. Levitate is a magnetic field. We position. Levitation has a limit. So, that's why they can't fly. So what we do, you create maglev positioning. So gravitational magnetic position decides. We done this test about 7-8 years ago in Tehran. The reactor which Marak and Arman are using, this system has flown in combination with the Iranian flight system. I have quoted it quite a few times when it flies off. So it's not an unknown condition. The system they are using now, we have boxed it. What it means, it will not be able to take off as before, because we used to catch it like a rugby ball. You throw it and you try to catch it. We used to change configuration, a small configuration in one core, and you used to create a different gravitational magnetic field in respect to the mother, which is the space reactor we have, and used to fly off. Now, with the one which they are using, we have put it between 2 plates. So if it decides to move, it has to move as totality, the whole frame. We have a unit which Marco has brought with himself. That unit is a seating unit, which means if we can get it moving, you can sit on it. The unit, which is a star system, the mother, if we use it on the ladder, we can get 2 people on it when it lifts. The rest are experimental. You cannot do much with it. There is no framework around it to get on it. The one which Jorge is using, this is what I call a naughty guy in the box. This is the devil we don't know, because there's a background noise. You can turn it up, I can't hear the question. The one which Jorge is using, it's uncontrollable. It's the joker in the pack, because it can fly off its center and come back to its center. So 1 minute it can fly in the positive direction clockwise, and the next minute it goes off center and it becomes anti-clockwise. or it decides to stop, because we've seen it, we know the character. So the one which Coquet will run is the joker in the pack. And as it changes, it can affect the other fields and positioning of the reactors in the setting as well. But we have to know it. This was necessary to be done, that we can understand what happens if conditions beyond control are created beyond our control. So this reactor is not expected to fly, but it expects to affect the operation of the others, and we observe the operation of the others and how will affect the operation of the flight system. You go into a magnetic field zone, higher, lower, a small amount of fields as a package, or as matter. The joker in the pack will show us a lot of things, but we have to watch it because I worked with it. I know its character, so we'll see how it will respond. The clay one is our main concern from John's, because it can shatter to pieces. So we're putting a lot of what I call protection around it. But that will be totally isolated, because we are putting it literally in a Faraday cage with holes we can see it. Because we have no choice. Because if the ceramics at high speed shatter, they can cause problems. So that is another thing we learn: isolation in respect, and what is above or below the metallic cage magnetic gravitational field strength. But we'll see. That is a what do you call it, unknown. Next question.
Yes, Mr. Keshe, this is Lucian. I have a few questions regarding the videos posted by the knowledge seekers in the last week, which were very good. So what I've observed is that you have two kind of cells. In one of them, you have both electrodes of copper, that means regular copper and nano-coated copper, and in the electricity production unit, one electrode is copper, the other one is iron. So the question will be based on different concentrations.
It's not iron, it's zinc. It's zinc plates. It's zinc. I think it's zinc, isn't it? Yeah, it is zinc. Yeah.
Okay, zinc. So another material. Yeah. It was looking like iron. So my question would be, based on what the material for the electrodes you are choosing, and based on the concentration of the salt into the water, what parameters will be influenced? I mean, fields,
the parameters, there are a lot of things. It depends on the distance between the two. In something which you will see, and if you look very closely, in a normal battery, if the two plates or north and south or positive negative touch each other, you create mayhem in your plate. You finish your battery. But with this system, you see if they show close up, the two pieces touch each other. It doesn't matter if they touch, the one plate touches the wires or not. It doesn't make any difference, because you have a nano-coated diamond structure. So it's not an electron transfer, it's an energy transfer, gravitational magnetic field. Then you will see, because these are the tests I've done as part of the research, these guys are very, very, what do you call it, what I call hand in pocket. They're scared of touching things. Sooner or later they've got to change their behavior. I have pulled and pushed and brought the two together. You separate them, you extend them, you do all sorts of things, and you see different conditions, different performance from each box. And this is something which has got to be learned. You change the position of the electrode. Pardon?
So go ahead, finish please, because
your positioning of the electrodes in respect to each other gives a different environment, different production. Your salt content, you can mix salt together. We've done a mixture of copper and aluminum wires together in one container plus a third electrode. You get different performance, but it's too early to show it with the knowledge seekers. You can put 4 different material electrodes in one container, and then you see the performance. And these are the things they have to understand and feel comfortable that we go to the next steps. That's part of this. That's a part of the knowledge seekers. The next step is not 2 electrodes; it's 4 or 6 electrodes of different materials in 3 or 4 combination. Then you will see how you produce totality. You can produce literally the fat, the blood, and everything else in one container that you start life structure. This is what is the next teachings coming on, where you create a material like in mine, which only produces fat. At the same time, because you're converting CO2 into oxygen, it shows what happened in our planet, where it was saturated with CO2, and in CO2 conversion of the gas to matter, the oxygen was released, and that's how we became more oxygen-based planet. It's all through the conversion of the gas system with the energy which is released to heat up. That's what we have, the heating of the planet. You're getting warmer, and you understand the whole process of the creation. So if you put another piece which is metal coated, we have a nail, and make it at the 3rd electron, and we add another material which brings, for example, copper or zinc, then you will understand how neurosystem and the brain structure starts working. This is what I was explaining this week about the structure of the brain to the knowledge seekers. In the brain, we do not see tissues. We see different densities, because in the lab, now that they start extracting the CO2 from the containers or copper oxide, you see them how they process, how they sync, how they position themselves as GANs, not as matter. And so they can see, we can take the material continuously out, you get different densities. And it's exactly how the brain works, the density and orientation of the GANs. Then you get different layers like the emotional part, the physical part of the brain. So we are in that stage now on the theoretical teaching basis. So I have shown them the structure of the brain and how it is. And the fallacy that only we use 5 or 10% of the brain is totally rubbish. The brain totally use 100% all the time by all its parts. But those parts are not visible, but we don't understand it. So we explain that more and more. And this brings us to why I asked Rick to put this workshop today on the schizophrenic, the work of the brain, because now they start seeing the work of the GANs materials. They should be able to understand slowly the work of the brain without any blood vessels, and how the system gains its energy and releases energy. One of my targets is that one of the reactors which is going to be run, it'll be filled with total GANs liquid. Which one I know, but I've got to make sure it's safe to do it. So we will run a liquid GANs core very soon in one of the reactors. And we will see what effect we'll have. That'll be the operation of the center brain compared to the rest, to understand the working of the brain within the structure of one of the reactors. So this is part of step-by-step expanding the knowledge. And that's why I said this workshop has to be, or I would like it to be, about schizophrenic. The point about the schizophrenic is that I have done, schizophrenic is one of the researches I've done more than anything else. It goes back with me to 1980-81. So when I think and I talk about the schizophrenic, I do not talk as a point of view of the present knowledge and medical applications of the schizophrenic and what they do with it. The way schizophrenic is handled is totally wrong. A person with a schizophrenic, we have to understand what is a schizophrenic. Man has not understood his own structure. And because of that, what he doesn't understand, he blames others for. And a schizophrenic is one of them. We are very much, as human beings, a matter-based people. We always, if we see it, we believe it. And it's the same with the Keshe Foundation. They say, oh, when you show it, we believe you. Otherwise, you're a fake. This is the same situation with the schizophrenic. In the process of the birth, we see different things. One of the initial things in the process of birth is if you're going to be a single, or you're going to twin or triplicate, or 4 or 5 of us in the womb of the mother. Then it comes the choice of the sexuality, man or female or male. Then it comes the birth, and at the point of birth, if one is born, we say, okay, it's born, it's a boy or it's a girl. If it's the two of them, we have two physical things in our hands. So there are twins or there are triplicates. One is boy, one is girl. And in some cases, we have what called Siamese twins, where it could be one boy, one girl, or 2 girls or 2 boys, having one body with 2 heads. We know the twins, which are now, that are old girls now, they're in their 30s, 40s, I think. And or we see them connected in half body with 2 heads, with 1 heart or whatever. And we are used to physicality seeing. The point which the world of science have not understood is the next step in the world of creation. One body, but 2 brains operating within the structure of the brain. In fact, the schizophrenic is twinity, twin, 2 individuals using 1 brain and 1 body. This is why when the doctors measure electric currents in the brain of the schizophrenic, or they do MRI, they say when he's in the schizophrenic, different part of the brain works, or different things, they see those different locations moving. And they try to give chemicals to subside it. These doctors never understood that this is a working of another person, another entity in the same structure of the body. Because they can't see it physically, they consider it as an illness. So, in fact, schizophrenic is not a disease of a person, it's the lack of understanding of the observer, of the reality of the situation. So, in fact, with the schizophrenic, you have a Siamese twin inside using 1 body and 2 parts of the brain. The whole structure of the behavior of schizophrenic and their violence and or their talking to themselves, this is the exact understanding the process of the structure of if you have twins or you have 2 people. At the beginning of birth, the one who has born first, like when you're twins, you have one who comes out and it's called the oldest, and he always plays the oldest, and the youngest one plays the young one, the little one, even though there's a few minutes separation between them. In the schizophrenic, it's the same situation. The one who we see first at birth, that becomes the character we know. The second character lives within as a subordinate. Sometimes it shows itself, but we don't see it. So when it comes to puberty and the growth and up to age of peer before puberty, there is no peer section. So even the psychologists have done studies. Children are not aware of color, they are not aware of sex, they are not aware of sex, who's boy or a girl, they know what it is. They don't even understand who's black and white. When you become into the puberty, hierarchy comes into position. Who's who and what is the position? And this is the time that the second character wants to be known as well. Now I exist. So you start seeing a behavior like a schizophrenic, talking to themselves. They are not talking to themselves. They are talking to the other half who shares the same body. If you've seen Siamese twin with two heads, they talk to each other, they fight each other. Go on the internet, look at their videos. They have one body and they share the body. There are two girls, they share, one likes a short and fat man and one likes a blonde and blue eyes and very thin. And they've come to share their body. Watch the video, there's 2 or 3 of them on the internet. I've been following this for years because they're all connected. So the guy who is a schizophrenic, you say, is talking to himself. He's not talking to himself. He's talking to the twin. It's us which is not aware of the second person that calls him he's crazy. Craziness belongs to us, not to them. If you gain the trust of the schizophrenic and allow him to introduce the second character to you, he will share the jokes, and you allow the second person, they have a different voice. They have different taste. They have different understanding of life. One, like twins, as you see, twins born together, one likes rugby and the other one hates rugby and he only plays chess. It's the same characteristics. They share a body, but their interest is totally different. So you'll be amazed. In my studies, I've seen that even the sight division is shared. One uses one eye and then one uses another part of the eye, or they share the vision distraction, which means one is watching, let's say, somebody in the bus sitting down and picking their nose, and the other one is rubbing the other one's pocket or tickling the other one. And one is watching the one who's picking his nose, and the other one is watching the one who's picking. So it says, come and have a look, the guy's picking his nose, look how he's doing it. So they look and they laugh, and we say the guy's crazy. In fact, it's a communication between two people. Doctors haven't understood this, and they use chemicals to subside to kill another character.
With this,
and we've seen the process of why a schizophrenic end up doing in mental hospitals, end up committing crime, because people don't understand the existence of the second, third, or the fourth character in the body. So twins is not a character, it's reality. So they laugh, they share jokes with each other. They're each other's partners. That's why schizophrenics become secluded people. First of all, it's like in the society we don't accept gays or lesbians, and they become clusters to themselves. And the same thing happened with the schizophrenic. People don't understand it. Now there are two twins, they have near enough, they share the body, so they share their interests and they find common things to do. They fall out with each other, they have argument with each other, where one wants to eat something, the other one doesn't want to eat. They become very selective in eating because they eat what the digestion which they share can accept, both of them. One doesn't like sweet, one doesn't like sour. So they try to accommodate that they're both happy with it. And you see more and more in the older age, selectiveness become part of their life. And one of the characteristics of the schizophrenic is, you see them nowadays, they consume huge amount of sugar and cola because brain needs a lot of energy to run two body. It's like two people running a marathon. You drink like two people. So the brain energy consumption goes high because now there are two people using energy to give orders. But in their process, they have found out who is going to be the boss of the body for when and what. If they come to an arrangement and the people around understand, then you find you have beautiful, gorgeous characters with a lot of potentials. We see schizophrenics committing crimes. The reason being can be fully explained. The one who is in charge or has been known to us, let's say John, we know John, and John, this is what John has done from childhood. We have never seen Susan, who's the twin again, but it's got a girl's behavior, part of the brain. But they share a body of a boy. So Susan wants to do something, but John doesn't want to do. Susan wants to be loved by the father and the mother the way they love John. And the parents are used to John, not Susan. After puberty, that's why we see a lot of problem in teenage years and in after 18, 20, 25. problems with the schizophrenic, because each one wants to run his sexuality in regarding what they like, friendship the same, and the one who charges body, who's always been in the front, we know as John, will not allow it because he's taken more or less over the charge of the body and he has control. But the second character, like it, and the second child in the house wants to be loved the same, looked after the same. So what does he do? When John is not in control, Susie takes over. And he wants to sell to the mom, I'm here, I exist too. But the parents don't see that because they see one body. Susan has no meaning to it. So what does Susan do? We see it historically. Schizophrenic attack their parents, the sisters, the brothers. They kill them, they maim them. Because they want, is like getting anger that I want to be recognized too. And this doesn't happen, so they attack the person. Why don't you accept me? I'm the same. And that's why we see attacks, fierce attacks on the immediate family and carers by the schizophrenic, because nobody respected Susan. Susan now shows her behavior with the tantrum, which usually ends up with the death of the father, mother, or brother, or critical damages. And then when John takes over the body, realizes what's happened, and in his character, he's gentle guy. He always been loved and cared by the parents. He sees the damage. What does he do? He wants to end this mayhem, that this thing doesn't repeat itself. Then we see a schizophrenic, a large number of them, after doing such a crime, they commit suicide. They kill themselves. Because us, as sick people, never realize the perfection of God in humanity. We have two people. If you see a schizophrenic and become friend and tell them, okay, introduce me to Susan, and when you're talking to them, you ask, who's talking? Is it John or is it Susan? Then you find out you have the best friends amongst you. There is no need for all these high chemicals to suppress the brain activities and make them numb. All you do, you numb the physicality, not the organization and operation of the brain. So, schizophrenic is not a disease, it's the lack of the knowledge of the observer. And as they say, one of the most famous schizophrenics works within the White House of the United States with 8-9 characters. He's in his 90s. Because people appreciate the knowledge they have. They become specialized in the things they do. I have done tests. You can give a newspaper to a schizophrenic with 2 characters, and in talking to them, you know one likes sport and one likes finance. And you give them the newspaper, and you ask John, who likes finance, what do you think about it? He tells you everything which is about finance on that newspaper. You ask Susan about the sports, she loves the sports, she tells you everything. If you listen to them, even the voice is different. Susan tries to speak more with the voice of a female. John speaks with a man. They say, oh, some of the schizophrenics are gay. But in fact, the ones who are not called gay is the ones usually with a twin, one male, one female, because the female wants to have the same sensation that John has. I have studied the schizophrenic in detail. The guys, those people who are thousands of them kept in hospitals and kept on the medical condition of sedation of body, you doctors sit and ask, okay, we made a mistake. We want to learn something new. Who is who, and explain yourself. Maybe we have to make a placard. Not marking, but celebrating the life of 2 people. The way we see 2 twins dressed up the same and we say they are twins, maybe we have to put a placard or something on these people, or dress them in a way that it says they are twins. Maybe half boys, half girl clothing, but not as a clown, but in a way that they're identified. We have a gorgeous character between us. Then we find out that schizophrenic is not a disease. A schizophrenic is a lack of understanding of the man who doesn't understand the creation. So let's see, in Keshe Foundation, in our medicals, we accept all the schizophrenic you can offer us. We open our doors, we appreciate and respect people who have brothers, sisters, children who be diagnosed as a schizophrenic. Bring them to us and we give you back the most gorgeous characters without medication. Just by understanding and respecting the creation. Understanding that is our lack of knowledge, not an illness. This is exactly the same as I always go. They hung and they killed the guy who said the earth was round and it wasn't the center of the universe. This is the same ignorance. We have not understood because we wait to see the physicality. Now that we have opened the space, these kind of characters, these kind of mental and physical interaction will be very normal. What are we going to say? Half of the, what do you call it, the creation in the universe is a schizophrenic? Or we say we are stupid, we never understood the system. This is part of the process of opening the space. We should not look for physicality. We should understand the condition and the situation and what is there. So if you're listening to us, if you're a doctor, if you are a family with a schizophrenic, we respect you and welcome you. We teach you how to bring these brilliant people into the science, into the society, respected as people, not as sick people. The violence, the talking they do, it can be explained. It doesn't need medical. When we don't understand, we give things to control, then we think we control, but we actually do a lot of damage. If the parents are taught to understand, they have a twins but in the body and they can respect it, they can ask John, can you fix the electric cable in the house because he likes electricity, and Susan, can you make your food because you like to cook? They do a perfect job. You don't have you have a single body, but with a lot of talents which you never appreciated it. And this is why I brought this subject. This is one of the subjects I've researched very deeply over years and years. And I don't even see any reason to write a paper. With the ILS, I wrote a paper for it. With the schizophrenic, how can you write a paper about the twins? How can you write somebody that are twins and you dress them up the same way? Find out as a parent, as a doctors, what is the name? The first thing you do, you have to gain the trust that we don't laugh. There is no joke, we understand it's two of you. What's the name of the other one? When they introduce the other one, you gain the trust. You have access into the knowledge of God. Then they can tell you, because one sees the operation of the brain of the other one and what is going wrong. He tells you he's got temperature, he's got a headache, where he touched the body and there is no heat. He says, oh, he's asleep, he's tired, where the body is awake and is working. Then you can understand, while one is asleep, you can talk to them, they explain the position, what they see. Or both of them, you ask them who's speaking. You have to introduce yourself, whoever speaks, that I know I'm dealing with John or I'm dealing with Susan. With Susan you speak about making skirts and knitting, and with John you speak about football and rugby and the rest. And Susan sits and listens because he knows she'll get her turn. You won't get violence, you get respect, and this is how it's maybe done. From this workshop we can open another door into the world of science, that a schizophrenic is us, not them. Because we don't understand the process of the creation. We become too materialistic, we become too physical to have, and as I said, we saw it here in our own lab. They couldn't see energy, they couldn't see a motor running, it was disappointment. They were like a bunch of schizophrenic running around. One praying over it, the other one hoping for it, the other one trying to fiddle things. They were never understood that the process is going on. It's the same with the schizophrenic. We have to understand who they are, respect them, and bring the beauty of their work out. Then we see there'll be hospital without any schizophrenic. Because actually we should be in there and they should be outside, as long as they can say who is doing what. So, any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Kesh.
Yes.
In that regards, would you say that a schizophrenic person has a better understanding of the connection to its own soul?
Very much so. Very much so. And they carry two souls, not one, like the twins. They're two individuals.
There was a question in the chat whether there might be multiple rather than just dual.
Yes, yes, there is. The one in White House is 9 characters. One is gay, one is, what do you call it, economist. According to what is coming out from White House past years, he's been advisor to 6 presidents up to now. Because it's like having a person who doesn't need to go outside. It's always, everybody is home with their own expertise. Because they, as I said, they read, it's true, it's not laughing. I've spent over 30 years of researching into this matter. And the reality is that we don't understand it. What we don't understand, we call it a disease. And we put a name to it. And schizophrenic is not an illness. It's a twin system which we never wanted to acknowledge, because we had to make the effort to know who's who. And if there are any families, anybody who listens or is within the family with a schizophrenic, or doctors who handle a schizophrenic, get in touch with Keshe Foundation on what do you call it? On our, even on the ILS for, what do you call it, for at Keshe Foundation, ALSATKF@gmail.com. You don't need to spend a single penny. We advise you, we talk to you, your son or your child, and if they are willing, and it can be done, you got to gain the trust. Then you'll find out, you go out with a full family when you go out with them. This is our lack of understanding, and I can teach you in a very, very simple way. You find out you don't need to lock the schizophrenic out, you don't need to give them chemicals. We see the stupid thing is they make an MRI, they make things, they make electrode connections, and they say, you see, this side is working when it's on the schizophrenic. Yes, of course, it's another brain, it's another piece working because it's another entity. And then they give them chemicals to suppress it. And they give them medical to suppress violence. You suppress the violence of the one you've ignored, so he wants to show himself. When you appreciate it, when you respect it, when you acknowledge it, there is no violence. It's like very much you put a cat in a corner, and then you say, why does the cat in the corner attacks? Because you cornered it. So it has to show itself, find a way out of it. And this is the problem. You have triplicates. The maximum I've seen is more or less 3. But 2 is very common. And they share jokes with you. You sit with them, you talk to them, say, what's the joke? No, nothing. No. I mean, then you say, okay, John, what's the joke? Oh, it's nothing. And then you ask Susan, what's the joke? Why, what's going on? Oh, and then he tells you, have you seen him? He just picked his nose. He says, you find out, it's very strange. And then you see just little things, because they become so close to each other, nobody understands them. That's why you see a schizophrenic laugh and talk to themselves. You say the guy's crazy. He's not talking to himself, he's talking to Susan. Or Susan is telling a joke to John.
Oh, sorry.
Hello?
Sorry, there was a question that came up in the chat here regarding the multiple personalities that can be created through mind control and through fracturing the psyche. And the person is asking what what your thoughts are about this, and whether more souls enter the mind.
No, we talk about the schizophrenic. Those are the things which is added to. Those are totally, to me, irrelevant. In respect to schizophrenic, we're talking about individuals with a full identity. And people who have two characters is different than the schizophrenic. The people who are a split character is nothing to do with the schizophrenic. A schizophrenic is a specific twin condition or triplicate condition. And there are brilliant people.
There was another comment in the chat that, what about people that have a sports, they have an aspect of themselves that are into sports, another aspect that's into, art and so on. Different aspects of someone's self is a totally different thing than what you're talking about with the schizophrenia.
That is the interest. That is an interest. That's not a schizophrenic. A schizophrenic has a specific behavior. A specific behavior, and they have a specific conduct. You see them talking to themselves. This is one of the first signs. You see them, the first time you see them talking to each other, it's just like a wink. They wink at each other. Come on, let's go. Because they don't want to show there is somebody else. Because even in their physicality of twinity, they don't realize that the other one doesn't see the body, because they think the other one sees the body. The first 3 or 4 or 5 years after puberty is the most confusing time for the body, because the body is used to control by the firstborn, we call it, and the secondborn is trying to insert its presence. I exist too. And this is a huge problem for the person at that age, at that stage. One of the first signs you see with the schizophrenic is twinkling of the eye, and they shake their head, or they just go shaking their head to the side, or they just say, come on. You hear them laughing. Out of nowhere, you see like a grin. They are aware that they are telling a joke or seeing something funny, and nobody is supposed to see it, or they say a joke to each other, they laugh between themselves. But they are aware if they laugh, people will tell they're crazy. So they try to control it. Grinning, small features, gestures is the first sign of schizophrenic. Then you have to understand, if it goes into the step of you hear them talking to themselves, they lock themselves up in the room because now it's 2 of them, they don't need anybody else. They're complete. So you find a lot of schizophrenic lock themselves in the house, close the curtains. First of all, when they are there is nobody else to laugh at them. They're isolated, and they close the curtain and they live a very secluded life. The seclusion comes because the society cannot appreciate the existence of 2 people. And in so many ways, it's like 2 lovers. They have everything they want between each other. They talk to each other, they read, they watch, they drink. They come out, they do a small shopping and go back and close the curtains. And the behavior is then what we do. We call the police. Oh, he's locked himself up in his room, and they take him to a mental hospital. They put him on sectioning them on the 29 days or 60 days. We're going to observe him. These stupid people, you got to observe yourselves. Because you never understood. And then the whole process starts. And why should a healthy person be imprisoned? These institutions are prisons for a healthy man. So you see violence behavior, you see that, and what they do, they just give them huge mind-affecting tranquilizers. They numb the body, but they don't stop the brain working in 2 ways. I wish if they give the same injection to the doctors who don't understand it, how they feel. This is the process. If this, what I was thinking this morning is that I give a lot of these talks, try to write it down, make it into, what do you call it, transcripts, and publish it. Because then it's there to be read. These videos will disappear or whatever. Anybody who can transcribe to write these, instead of writing it at the bottom of the page, just do it as a document and put it on the foundation. We let people read it. Because I don't have time to write anymore, especially with the knowledge seekers. These workshops has to become part of the publication, and they can be published as a package. This is what we need to do. If you have anybody, if you know anybody, I'm prepared to go, and we can find 1 or 2 families or people who've been marked as a schizophrenic. We interview them beforehand, and then we put them on one of the workshops live, like now. And then you understand. You free a man from the prison which you made for the man. By us, as what we call ourselves normals, which we are the sick people, we imprison 2 people in one body. Because then we have to make an effort to know which one is which. We prefer to call it them sick than us. And then we damage 2 people. We damage 2 souls. And then we call them they're sick. There should be no one in any institute in the world with a disease called schizophrenic. These are geniuses which we lock up because of our own stupidity, of lack of understanding. And if we can correct this mistake, which we've done over centuries, become our habit, then in a space we see the same kind of things. We recognize the beauty, not mark it as a kind of illness, a disease, or whatever. We have to understand the process and the reason, not just be so materialistic and do what we like we've done up to now. Next question.
Is there a specific condition that creates the schizophrenia? Like in the womb, or is it
specific?
Genetic?
Yes. What happened? The physical part does not grow. The physical part does not grow, or the brain prefers to create one body for operation of the 2. It's the same condition why you have twins. But the twinity happens in the emotional part of the brain, not in the physical part of the brain. This is part of the knowledge which the world of medicine has never understood and is totally ignorant to it. You have an emotional part of the brain and you have a physical part. When the emotional and physical part are split together, you will get the twins or a single person, if it stays one. When the emotional part splits, but the physical part doesn't follow, then you get this condition. It's the same situation with ALS. When the emotional part wishes to end the life because of failures of the past, knowing the horrible time of the past, of the similar situation, the physical part switches off, ends up with death. This is the same process. This is what man has not understood. Schizophrenic, what we call a schizophrenic, should be the beautiful twins, I call them. Because the emotional part has a split, but the physical part in the process of birth has not, divided. But the arrangement has been made, or the connection has been made like Siamese twin, to share the physical part. This is the difference. We will come across these kind of conditions in different form and shape in the space now that we open the space to the people. You will see 20 bodies with one decision making, because it's worth to have 20 extensions because you have 40 arms more. You don't need the physicality. This is the physicality. It's a man's problem. It's this planet's problem. So there is no difference with the twin, with the Siamese twin, or what we call these beautiful twins. The beautiful twos are absolutely gorgeous if you get to know them. You can say to one, okay, we go out to a disco, you dance with a girl. The next day you say, okay, we go out for a rugby, and you can play a beautiful rugby game. But they know tonight is my turn, I go to a disco as a girl. And the other one knows tomorrow is my rugby time. It's just having children and respecting it. Then you understand. Then you understand you have no violence. You appreciate each one has a time. Today you like, Susan likes, let's say, Chinese. And John, to show that he's different, even he loves Chinese, says, I like Indian. So you say, Susan, today we go to Chinese because you like it. And John, you have to compromise. And then tomorrow you go to India and says, John, we go to Chinese, to Indian because you like hot food, because they want to be different, huh? Twins don't like always to be dressed the same as, even though the parents do it with them. So you go to Indian, and the Susan comes because she knows she had the Chinese time yesterday. It's a lot of work initially, but afterwards it's so beautiful. They come to you and say, oh, it's Susan, I want to go shopping, whatever. I know a schizophrenic who make boys, but they wear makeups and they wear girls' clothing because the other half is a girl in the house. Because both are satisfied, but outside they keep the image. I have studied this thoroughly. I understand fully. That's why with ILS and the mental diseases we understand, because we have gone into the process of research in the depth as it is, not as what we want it to be. So please, if you have people with the schizophrenic, you have people with brothers, sisters, children who've been diagnosed, just contact the Keshe Foundation. Through the same channel, ILS 80 Keshe Foundation. I will talk to you. There is no need for medication, and it's totally free to free these people out of the prison they live in. And then you have a fantastic life. And the only thing is, the biggest problem is, when you go out, when you take them to a party, when you introduce them to your friend, you tell them they are twins. You have to know. At the beginning it's funny to people, they don't accept it. But when they speak to John about rugby, and then they speak to Susan about fashion, then they realize what a beautiful things are them. They become celebrities. Because I can't do it, but they can do it. Because Susan can talk to the wife, and John can talk to the husband.
Mr. Keshe, we have a question here that is interesting, that I believe is interesting at this time. It's, where is it showing it? How did schizophrenia originate in human evolution?
Nothing is part of the division of cells. It's a normal process. It doesn't appear. It's a natural process. It's a natural process.
Right back to the first caveman or whatever, basically, that would...
Whatever, it was there. The way we became twins, we became a schizo called beautiful twins. It's the same thing. It's us which could not recognize the reality, the existence. This is our fault because, as I said, we are too materialistic, we are too physical. We want to see. We want to see the light going, otherwise the reactor is doing nothing, and the next day and the next week the reactor, which was totally disappointment, has become a source in Fukushima. Is an expectation of what we want from something. We would like our children to become medical doctors. What would you do if all were medical doctors? Who would do the farming? Who would become the pharmacist? It's the same position. We like ours to be what we can handle, not what it is. And this is the same situation. I have been into enough mental institutes with the schizophrenic. I've spent enough time in these mental institutes, and I've observed enough of them. There should be no one on this planet, in any institute, locked up with schizophrenic. The doctors should be inside and they have to be outside to teach the doctors I'm not sick. And then bring the doctors out. The position of the doctor and the what they call the schizophrenic or beautiful twins has to be reversed. It's us who don't understand the process of the creation. You know, it is how we become denial. You're Canadians, as you know, in Canada, no publication, no papers can be published which is by any Iranian scientist. So in Iran there is no Iranian scientists exist according to the eyes of Canadians government. What is the reality? The rest of the people know. You find out when you put two schizophrenic together, two what I call beautiful twins, there's 4 of them, they have a beautiful time with each other. Because they know, they appreciate, they understand each other. And it could be if you find a rare case of a boy and a girl in both, the girls talk girls and the boys talk boys. But they give each other's time. So it's a natural process. It's just that we never understood it. So for the first time, it's explained what it is. And if the doctors understand this and start working, just go to your wards, go into your schizophrenic, what you call mental institutes, sections, anywhere. And take 2 or 3 of them and say, okay, we made a mistake. There is no medication. I would love to know, I made a mistake. I apologize. Can you tell me, I would like to know your other character. Not the character, I would like to know your twins. I would like to know your other person. And let the other person show itself. And always make time. This is your time. You find that like children, they jump in. As you say, no, 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 John, this is not your time. Let Susan talk, then you have. And when they gain your trust, they see you the way you appreciate both. You'll find out the one which has been the one prominent, we know, always tries to force his way in, like the oldest child. And you have to say, you will not lose any love and care. Everything will be the same. Huh? You have to allow Susan to speak too. Then we have a beautiful time. And usually the beauty with it is you take them out. You ask them what they like to buy, what they like to eat, what they like to talk about. And you live, you have to make the effort to allow them to have their own time. It's like when you have 2 children. You have a boy and a girl, you go shopping for the boy and the girl is with you, but she knows she's got to wait till they go to the girl's shop to do the shopping. But you do that with one body. This is our lack of knowledge. And now we open the space, we have to understand the dimensions of the creation, not what we would like to have.
Mr. Kesh, there's a question.
Mr.
Kesh, there's a question. Can autism be treated with a similar method? Do you know
Autism is
that?
totally different. Autism is a different thing than the schizophrenic. Autism is a selected path, and it's a personal decision, but in a way it's got to do with brain structure. We don't understand autism fully at the moment yet. We got 3 or 4 trials going in different countries, and we've seen progress, but it's not the way we expect it to be. But it is very good because we've seen changes. We have 5 cases now, all children below 18, with their mothers and the doctors supervising. And we've seen progress, in some cases very good, some cases not really. We've seen a child who was called autistic, but he used to be in a handicap school, and now he's joined a mainstream school and sits for exams normal like other children does. And we've seen the same thing in 4 or 5 cases. And trials are still going on. I'll meet one of them very soon. He's been with us nearly 6 months now. So we're changing the system to see how we can do the changes. Autism is a totally different thing on the brain structure. The schizophrenic is a birthright, not a disease. Next question.
So then it's also a lot more common than we should be, that we think of at the moment.
As many as twins you see that are schizophrenic, huh? Or beautiful twins. It's a natural process. It's a total natural process. It's just that we don't have the eye to see the reality. There are as many, many beautiful twins as the physical twins.
So also another question on that then. Can one die without the other one?
One dies because of the physicality, yes. It forces the other one, yes.
I'm talking about themselves separately. Can either one of them pass away, kind of?
Yes. There are some reports over time that the guy used to be a schizophrenic, now he's okay, he's only, he doesn't laugh. In this process, we don't understand if the emotional side of the brain has ceased working, or is it totality of a death. This is something we don't understand. But it's known that the schizophrenic, even in the old age or somewhere in between their ages, like a natural death, the brain section stops working, if you call that a death. So, but you only see, and they say, oh, they've been given so much chemical, so much medicine, he's okay now, he's home. But in fact, did the chemicals kill the person? Is the doctor a murderer? Or they put so much that is totally paralyzed, dysfunction, connection to the physical part. Because when you speak to the schizophrenic, when you, for example, if it's a twin boy and a girl, you not only you see the change in the voice, you see change in the physical behavior too. When the girl speaks, the fingers and the body moves like a woman. And when the boys speak, it's all macho. Because they've separated the two. So it means both have connection and control over their emotion and physical behavior. It's like, you see a boy, but he's more tendency to be a girl, and he walks like a girl and holds the hand like, I'm a girl. The same thing you see with the schizophrenic, which is twin. Even with the ones which are two boys or two girls, you see the same thing. One behaves different way. Go on the internet. There's a Siamese twin. They're in their 30s, 40s now. I don't know if they're still alive. You see them. They even have boyfriends, and they decide, because it's one body, how they're going to share the body, and who's going to have which boyfriend and when. It's the same thing with the beautiful twins. You have to understand.
So we could also
carry on.
Sorry. So it could also be. I just want to have an example, and I think a lot of people know of how Bradley Manning was sentenced and then became another person. In that kind of a circumstance, just to put it this way, if he was a schizophrenic to begin with, then he could have gone through such a devastating situation to let the other person come out and take control. Is that right?
I don't know about the case, I can't make a comment, but in so many times we see violence with the schizophrenic because the second emotional part is being cornered, is not allowed to show its potential and its existence. And they always crave for the love and recognition of the parents and the brothers and sisters. They crave because the other one has had all the attention. Now is my turn. I want to be loved too. And they speak about different things. And the mother says, oh, you were talking, like rugby. What is this? We never heard you talk about. They don't understand that is now Susan speaking. if the parents recognize this, they won't attack them. Now you have to sit them down, educate the parents as much as educate the beautiful twins. That this is a problem. People don't understand you. At the same time, to the parents, sorry, you gave birth to 2 in 1. You have a full package. It is a huge understanding for both sides. It's not just one way. And then on top of it, you have to teach the family, educate the family. You never insult him. He's a schizo. No, he's a beautiful twin. You are a schizo because you don't have an understanding of what it is. It's the same situation now with us with the Belgian government. They don't understand the work of the medical side. Now they're building cases for fraud, taking money, people complaining they haven't done this and the rest because he's practicing medicine without license. They don't understand. You idiots, Mr. Delanois, we know what you're up to. You don't understand what is on the plate. You become the Judas. You have become the Judas. Because you don't understand, you think you can force the rest of the world to go your way? Issue the warrants. We'll meet you in the court. It's the same thing. How many schizophrenic people have appeared in front of the medical courts and been sentenced to mental institutes? The judges should be there, not them, and the doctors who support with the false and their own misunderstanding to put these people behind walls. These are innocent people who have been captured in court because of people's lack of understanding. Put this out, put this
Mr. Cash?
presentation, work out, yeah. Yes,
what is the relationship between the schizophrenic phenomenon and the gravitational magnetic field? Or another way to put it is, how did you discover this?
Oh, it's a long, long story. It's a long, long story. But it's to do with the gravitational magnetic field. These people share the brain, activities of the brain. These people share the whole structure of the brain with their own thoughts to create, as we say, gravitational magnetic field. One creates a different one and the other one creates a different one. It's very interesting if these people who are very clever when they make these helmets with all these electrodes. I know our friends in Tel Aviv do, because I've been with them regarding our coma patient, which Yo has told you. And we put a video out somewhere when she was assessed between the doctors in Liège hospital with a program from scientists from Tel Aviv and a coma specialist from Cambridge University. We spent the day in the hospital to assess the working of the brain, with putting like, I don't know, 150, 200 electrodes on a hat, just like a hat they wear, and they see the operation of the brain. And even with the MRI, you will speak to John and recognize John under MRI. You will see one part of the brain works all the time. You speak to Susan and you see only that part works. This is not a disease. This is recognizing the existence of two people. I think the minute somebody is diagnosed with a beautiful twin, put an MRI and see maybe it's 3 or 4. We haven't recognized the other 2 or 3. That we don't make a mistake again. We think only 2, but we're suppressing 2 or 3 more in the background. So it is a form, it's a reality of the existence, and they create their own gravitational magnetic field in their what do you call it, part of brain which they control, and they do the others.
So is that like a dual core reactor?
Pardon?
I said,
can you repeat?
Would that be kind of like a dual core reactor?
Very much, maybe triple. They have autonomy in their own lives. It's just that we don't recognize it. But the whole brain is such a huge organization that you can even add 30, 40, 50 characters in the same part of the emotional part. with one body. Beautiful twin is our disease, not the people who are the twins. If the schizophrenics, what I call beautiful twins, are the sick people and it's got to be kept in the institutes, so we have to send all the twins into the institute too. Lock them up. And then we understand what the mayhem we have caused for years because of our own lack of understanding.
Mr. Keshe, another.
I opened the door. Yeah.
Another question from the live stream chat. It's is this the same as when two galaxies get one inside the other?
Not really. It's like when two galaxies born together inside each other. There are in the universe parts that we see two different structures like galaxies inside each other. You'll soon understand. We look at them at one entity, but you'll understand they have different fields and part of the galaxy moves in different directions than the other. These are the twin galaxies too. But they are inside each other and they find balance. You said you got to find a principal star in them and then you see their operation.
There is a question from Elia. She's having problems with the computer, but what's the...
She's still decorating.
Yeah, she's on a live
decorating.
stream or something.
Yeah,
so she's interested what happened from GAN's point of view, which gas is on the top and how they affect the neurotransmitters.
I was explaining this to the knowledge seekers this week. The neurosystem is not fully understood. The structure of the neurosystem is not fully understood by world of medicine. Your nerves have the same structure as your brain because they are extension of your brain. So the same as you have emotional section of your brain and the physical part and the outer boundary part, every nerve in your body has the same. The center part of your nerve carries your emotion. The same, the outer part does the physicality. And this is why we can explain this fully, because we have a case where the physical part has been touched of the nerve, but not the emotional part and the memory part. There's a case we're running now for about 4 or 5 months. He's a doctor. What's happened in his surgery, he's been hit on the head by X-ray machine when he was pulling it down to take an X-ray. He has all his senses of knowledge. He still have all the knowledges of a doctor, but his connection between his physical part of the nerve with the eye has been touched because of the accident. So what happens if you tell him what is 2 + 2, he writes 4. He can write a full prescription. But if you write 2 + 2, he cannot even think about it. He cannot even add it. He writes something. So this is something which the world of neurologists should look into because they haven't understood it. Now we explain it. Nerve has layering. Center of each nerve is for emotion. And then the same structure as your brain, as it goes further to the outer boundary, is physicality. Then you understand the composition of the GANs in the neurosystem. That's why when you have an ILS or when you have an MS, the same emotion has carried through the nerve, and at the point of the physicality, there is a misfunctioning or change. You get the arm disabled, leg disabled, not talking and the rest. Where the emotion passed through more is the where you see, for example, with the ILS, where they lose their speech first because they could not express the same pain as before when they were a child. They couldn't express themselves talking about it. Now they see the same situation repeating itself, and they know it's so bad they can't control it. In the childhood they couldn't speak, they choose the silence. So now we see a lot of ILS with the people who lose their voice and their tongue first, but physically they can run a marathon. And then you have people who've gone through the physical torture of whatever, or failure of physicality of whatever. That's what you see with the ILS, which is physical. You know, they lose their work use of their hand. But the actual information is carried through the center of the nerve, the emotional part. The structure of your nerve is exactly the structure of your brain. It's got the emotional part, physical part, a transition between the two, and operation of between different information. Then the world of medicine has totally different meanings, how you handle a lot of diseases. This is what has never been understood. And that change in emotion to the physical part, as I showed it in the brain, a structure to the knowledge seeker this week, we don't see layers, we don't see muscles and tissues and bones in the brain, but we see a strictly different structure of the same thing in different composition, what do you call it, density and magnetic field strength. Elia is a doctor, cut a brain. Then you understand. You don't see separation, but you see difference in texture. Difference in texture is being the same, but different density, gravitational, magnetic field pack. And then you understand, one of the things which we start doing in the foundation very soon, we start making a copy of the brain. We have the materials, we are producing enough materials to create non-electronic connection systems which behave like brains, like control system. We have a sphere, we can fill it up, and through it affect its position and motion. These are not the fairy tales that are here. We already discussed it here. It's going to be done, and it'll be for the advanced reactors. With the operation of the reactor in the space, as I said before, if you press a button and wait for the reactor to change its composition, you already done, God knows, 10,000, 100,000, a million kilometers. The operation has to be instantaneous, and the change is the same. The minute you touch your toe, you feel it in your brain. The minute you walk on the nail, you feel it in your brain. It's not electronic because it takes too long for electrons to transfer it. It's done as a superconductor, as a GaNs. And that is done through magnetic field transformation, not through electron motion. So we have enough materials now. I showed it to the knowledge seekers. We even get different color copper oxide. Now if you can dense it and put it in different layers, you get the same structure. You see the same structure as you see in the brain of the man. Then the electric connection is not electronic, it's gravitational magnetic field. It's a zero communication, exactly as we talked before. The knowledge seekers will show this very soon in the next few weeks, because to be able to build a spacecraft, we have to catch up very fast. So everything is done together at the same time. And the operation of the neurosystem, we will show. I will build a nerve and I'll show you how the composition changes. I've done it before. It's a very difficult job to do, but as different kind of gases are getting produced in the lab, we will show you how you can show the structure and the working of a real true nerve system. Not the way it's been there, it's been assumed. A nerve structure is an exact copy of your brain. It's an extension of your brain. How come you don't hear a word? You look at the face of a child crying and you feel the emotion of it. That goes through the emotional part of the eye neurosystem. You feel the emotion. When is the sound? When is the movement? When is something else, is different part is used. So for your, ears, you use more emphasis on different layer of the nerve, not on the emotion. but at the same time emotion is there. A cry makes you cry because the emotion carries a different gravitational magnetic field which is absorbed by that layer because it's more receptive than the physical. Physicality is slow, but emotion, so in the center, higher density, faster transformation is used. I'll teach this to you as we go along. Next question.
Ellie is still operating on my brain, so she's asking, what do you mean under nerve? Axon or part of axon, and the axon is a brain cell, or glia, substance.
I don't know what she's talking about. Don't go too technical, Elia.
I don't know, I'm just translating. But I'm married and I know what
you should be here. The next question. Is there any other question? Or shall we call it a day today?
Can we go with other questions other than the schizophrenia?
Yes, no problem. And most probably you want to go back to the energy and emotion, and I'm getting fed up with it. There is more than
not
this.
necessarily.
But you have to learn. Yeah, go on. No problem.
I would like to, I mean, in my point of view, this will be like a quality assurance process. And I would like to refer to your CO2 patent. So in that
if
paper,
you want me to remember something about my patent, God help you. I can't remember a thing.
No. So basically you were saying that based on the combination of electrodes and electrolyte, one can obtain CO2 or CH4. So I'm assuming that in order to steer the phenomenon in one or the other direction, you have to know what changes will create one or the other absorption. So my question will be, just for people to be able to experiment and see the difference.
They have to test it. They have. Don't forget, now that we got the 7-8 combination reactors, we should be able to produce CO2 in a liquid state somewhere between the reactors, dynamic reactors. We don't need the GaNs layers. If you look at the layers, nano layers on your electrode, each one creates in the whole different gravitational magnetic fields. And the interaction of different gravitational magnets of each hole in each layer dictates what gravitational magnetic field the yellow layer will show. This is how the stars work, how they create gravitational magnetic field. So now that we have the dynamic system, so now that we have the dynamic systems running 7 or 8 of them, maybe more as the more people come, while the system will be running, in one part of the setup you will see it falls out CO2, and in another part it drops gold out of the magnetic field of the environment as it changes to matter. We show that this is the transition part of the learning with the new reactors coming into operation. We try to show the behavior of the nano layers in a physical, practical system. This is how in the universe, planets like Earth creates matters which is in its gravitational magnetic field spectrum. Earth has a composite center, and that composite center creates a composite gravitational magnetic field which allows composite of matters to be collected on this planet. The rest of the materials which we know exist in the universe or whatever, but we don't have it here, we call it rare earth, because the gravitational magnetic field in the center of the Earth is not near to it. This will be very clear once the Fukushima test is done in the next few days. The reason that if we put nanomaterials that they will absorb from H3 to cesium or plutonium or whatever which is in the material, in the soil or in the water, is because between the layers of these materials in the nano layers, a spectrum of magnetic gravitational fields is created. If we cannot see collection, a cluster of CH3 in the water, it means in those layers we have not managed to create a gravitational magnetic field of CH3. But we can run one of our reactors here with the containing CH3 inside, that the reactor when run will attract all the H3 to itself in the water. It's not that we failed, it means that we haven't produced a thing. But if in the test in Fukushima we see a cluster of radioactive material coming together like gel, it means our material is creating a spectrum of the fields which matches to cesium, to plutonium, to H3 and the rest. And this is a major breakthrough. Major breakthrough. So this shows in space we can use these materials to absorb gravitational, create gravitational magnetic fields of cesium. We need cesium, we just create it in a nanolayer. We know this nanolayer, we put it out, we collect, we come back. So the next 72 hours, I don't look at it as a failure if nothing happens, but if the things happen the way we expected, because I stayed alive when the tests are happening in Fukushima to advise Yukoko what should be in the next step. And we try to record it. If nothing happens, it's not a failure. It means we have not managed to create the matching gravitational magnetic field. But if in these tests we see collection of certain things, then it shows our layers creating, it's magnets. You create a magnet, metal magnets cannot absorb wood, cannot attract wood. So it means in this process we're done. This has a huge, huge implication. It is. Pardon?
On this point, probably my question would be, which will have the bigger gravitational magnetic field, the CO2 or the CH4? In other words,
depends on what the layer is creating. It depends how the process was done, which gravitational magnetic field was embedded in the layer.
Right, I mean, I'm trying to put myself into the position of the person beginning to study the technology. So as per the videos you showed us how to do it, the person will do it, and supposedly at specific point he will not get nothing. So not having the knowledge,
it happened to us. It happened to us. It happened to us. Do what the guy did who made the penicillin. If you run something and there's nothing there, you know how penicillin was discovered? Because the guy had an argument with his wife and he left the home for a bit and he came back and he found penicillin. I always say, do the same, just leave it. Even for a month, leave it just because you don't see something. If you put your voltmeter and you see a minute voltage, it means it's working. Now, let the nature show its process. The problem is with us, we put the water and we put a flour in and we put the egg in and we expect what they call it, the cake. Universe doesn't work that way. We've seen it in our lab again and again. You have, the first time we put the reactors on the floor, we won't see things happening. We might run it for a month before we see one of them nudges or kicks. Or if you're lucky, what happened in Tehran? The first time we loaded, we flew. The thing lifted. This is the process. Don't use the minute you say nothing happens, to me it means you haven't understood the process of the creation. Always something happens. It's you who's blind to it. It's like the schizophrenic. You don't want to see it. Give it time. For a person to show what you call it, it takes 18 years.
So basically, going to this process, one cannot know upfront as you explained, what the gravitational magnetic field is embedded because of the, the quality of the process.
No. You're wrong. The two sets, the knowledge seekers built over 2 weeks, they did not know because it's the first time they're doing it. The system which I made with 10 years of experience of making this kind of thing, I went to produce energy and produce, fat. And it's doing it. And I explain how even you position your electrodes in the system affects what it does. If you, where you join the nanomaterial to connection to the metal side, if you bend it to the water or to the liquid, you absorb the energy from the liquid, which is back to it to go to itself. Or if you look at the shape of the electrodes I have in my set, in the 48 set, is facing up into the space, which is collecting energy the way it's supposed to do. You can, by expertise, to you at the moment is random, but to us, because I've done it so long, we can more or less make system to perform certain things. But the knowledge is there to be gained. There is more knowledge. You can make a system like now, the way, as I said, we are just producing protein and nothing else at the moment. In the majority of the boxes, 2 boxes have turned orange. I understand why. I'm waiting to see if this goes red. You have a fat which is on the surface. Now, because of the stagnation of the fat blocking the oxygen into, or the conversion into it, the water with what is coming from carbon is creating CH3, which is the orange color. We know this because of the Raman spectroscopy, which is done in Ghent University for us. So now in 2 or 3 division cups, we see the orange color with a fat on the top. Sugar becoming the source of energy for the fat to start the first cycle of life. And at the same time, we see bubbles. You say you don't know. We know the parameters, we know certain amount of parameters. Now that's why we're bringing this, the next 25 and the next 250. Now is to categorize. This is, I explained to the knowledge seekers yesterday. I knew what I'm doing because I've done it so much, and in mine you don't see any CO2, you don't see any copper oxide, you see nothing. Even though I use copper wires. You have to learn the process in what you need to, what to do, and how you make layers. You lot, you just do the thing and just expect the thing, but you don't observe how one side is black and one side doesn't have a copper. How you had a full non-coated copper on a film while everything around it is there. What's the reason? You are too passive and you just want expecting the results, and that's it.
Question. Just a second, I want to interrupt you because our buddy Vincent had this situation. He had like a copper tube, which was fully covered with material, and the copper wires, which were completely uncovered. So obviously we were asking ourselves why.
The condition you created in your processing of the material has led to this. So where you are, or what you achieve or what you produce is the consequences of the process you started. Test everything different ways. Heat your wire before you do it. Cool the wire before you do it. Cut your wires in different shape. Bunch them together. I explained to the knowledge seekers why, if you look at the pictures in the orange cups, you see partially wires, partially coated, partially not coated, partially copper oxide is oozing out. Because in twisting the wire, they created multi-condition environment. So not every single wire has been coated the same. I showed them When I make my wires, when I coat the wires, when I put the wires through, I open it like the hair. You know when you have a long hair and you open it? With mine, I spend time in opening it, that coating is homogeneous. Secondly, the process is different. It's very much, if you made a sugar, or you made, solid sugar, or you make, crystal sugar. It's the same sugar. The process gives you a different thing. It's the same thing with nano coating. You lot just seen one thing, you want to repeat and get, no, understand what you're doing. None of you will create the same thing, or none of you can repeat the same test twice if you have not made a record of how you done it. How hot was your water? When did you take the wire out and how long you left it out? Was it dry wire? Was it a wet wire? You want a space in your things. How do you make a space on your wire? One section, I can make your wires which one section has no coating, even though you put it through caustic. These, you have to learn, and this is part, people want to have everything. It's like an email I received, I was talking knowledge seekers. Now that you've given the design of the energy reactor to the Italians, we are coming to Italy, you have to take us to the factory to see how the Italians are doing it. Bullshit. Nothing will happen that way.
And we have
I have an email. This cannot be done. You have to test and you have to put things in order. You have to learn. You were as fast as downloading the patterns millions of times in past 10 days. Be the same, test slowly, piece by piece.
Right. We had another discussion in the group regarding to the fact that if the number of nanolayers will increase, the strength of the magnetic gravitational field trapped between the layer will be higher. So
of course, you're correct.
Okay.
You're correct.
And thank you.
Let me
and
give you a
issue...
tip. Before you go further. You use, for example, when you're nano coating, when you're doing the process of coating, use on one layer, on one process, just sodium, yeah? Let it dry. Let it go through the process of the growth, but not too dry, yeah? Next time you put your wire in for the second coating, add aluminum into your caustic.
Okay.
Bring it out, and then the next time add zinc into it. You'll find out the spectrum will change totally. Each layer will bring different gravitational magnetic field spectrum into play. This is how the gravitational magnetic field of the stars are so powerful, because layers of different strengths are trapped between each other and they interact. As much as the two adjacent layer gravitational magnetic field interact to create gravity, so does the 10th layer with the first layer. So you get a spectrum. So you get a better, stronger, and that's why stars have a huge span of, plasma. You're correct. You're doing the right things, and your assumption is not assumption, it's actually you understood the principle. And this is beautiful. Slowly you'll have to understand.
Okay, thank you. And we had another discussion with Ludmil, who was informing us that when he was trying to do the coating in plastic containers that had very little air above the liquid, he didn't get any coating. So we were trying to figure out if the process is depending on the ratio between the gas material into the container versus the liquid volume. Is any connection?
No, not as far as I know. Repeat the process the same way. Repeat the process. You see, we have had it here with the Coca-Cola bottles. When I make electrodes, the original ones you've seen, I get the separation of the head, and I've shown it to the knowledge seekers.
Right.
And up to now, I haven't seen, even the bottles are here for about 2-3 weeks, we have seen no dissolution of the screw head of the Coca-Cola bottle, because I know what I've done and I know what they've done. The process I make mine repeats exactly the same thing all the time. The process they used here to do the Coca-Cola bottle has taken a long time to create coating. Duration, time, heat, it's all dependent. The good example of this coating is the research. We're going to publish it. It's in archives. I've got to ask the guy to come in and take charge doing it. When we done a seed test past 2 years, we financed the research in seed growth.
So basically what they are doing wrong.
Nothing is doing wrong. It's just that to you is wrong because you have an expectation before you learn. Learn what has happened. With the seeds, if we put the seeds 10 seconds to soak, in 3 months, in 2 months' time, when they grow totally different when we put a seed 1 hour. Even the soaking, coating of the seed and what energy is absorbed in the seed in 3 months shows its result. We have seen it. If I have a full timetable, the way the guy is, he's a scientist. He's done this in conjunction with the scientists in Leuven University. The duration of soaking has been measured. The position they've been soaked, how they've been soaked, all has been measured. It's the same thing with you. Your caustic, your material you do, you haven't understood why. Look at your coating. How many of you have just coated without taking the plastic cover off the wire? You will find out you get the most perfect coating if you do not remove the cover, the plastic cover of the wire.
Well, sorry to say that, but there is completely no covering under the plastic.
Yes, it is not, but it becomes black. I can go down and open the camera and show you how many wires we have. We have even done high tension wires. There is something wrong with what you are doing, and this is your problem, not the process. You haven't understood what you're doing.
Well, I don't know. There were bare wires and with the
but
plastic.
you have to know, yeah, but look at the coating, what the wire has been. Look for what you're doing. There is something or your nano coating is not thick enough to show. If you want a perfect coating without any oxide, there is a process to do it without moving the coating. And we've done it for one of the power generator companies with the high tension cables. And the sample is here. I've shown it to the volunteers. We can coat high tension cables without even removing the cover. I posted pictures with Mark this week. I'll give it to him to put the pictures on.
I don't know, my videos are on YouTube and you can look at them.
You have done. If you cannot, it's like, I think Yo has posted a video. All his things become white because the content is too much and it's too close. So the caustic dust sits on top of his wires. Or the process is the wrong thing.
Saying that after 2 days the black first stage was disappearing.
Yeah, because it can be done. But in a way it disappears, but in a way if he knows how he's doing it, the layers are still there. The best, even disappears, you put your you put two, voltmeter, ohm meter on, and you test the skin, if there is conductivity or not. You do not need physically to see the layers for them to be there. For a layer to be seen as a nanomaterial, it's got to be about at least 5, 10, 20,000 layers on top of each other. You're talking about nano. That's 10 to the minus 19. I think none of us got a laser eye yet. So the easiest way is just put a voltmeter. Don't press it because the layers are so thin. The minute you press it, you've broken the what do you call it, the coating. Don't rely on your eye. Test. To you might be nothing there, but maybe you have created a very low coating, and this has application. If you know how to use it, the wire I've used for my system is not black. It's brownish color, yellowish copper. The thing is, I told you become too physical. Just it has to be black and it has to be that to have an effect. If you touch your wires and you don't get conductivity, it means insulated. Set up the same system through a low voltage and see what you get. You might be able to produce pure hydrogen, and I think you should be able to do so. The lower layers, the weaker layers, the lighter materials. As Vince just said, you make so many layers, you make a spectrum, so you can absorb heavy. That's why we rely on Fukushima. So when you have such a thin layers and you think you've done nothing and there's something wrong, have you ever tested the conductivity of the wire? Test it. If it shows 0 ohm, shows no connection, even you don't touch it, because if you press it too hard, you're already broken. It's a nano layer. It's nano thick. So the very, very thin layers are for very, very, very light elements. If you never understood, now you understand. Connect it, put it in the water, in the right combination. Don't put a high motor to run. You put a LED, the weakest LED, the weakest, what do you call it, energy drainage from it. And if you start seeing bubbles, it means you're producing pure hydrogen. So there is nothing wrong with the system. There is nothing wrong with what you created. It's just you haven't understood what you've done. And somebody like me who's done it knows exactly what he's doing. So I can see your fault. I can see you crying fall game, but in fact you don't know you got a gold in your hand. So it's your problem. Next question.
Yes, Mr. Keshe, it's Vince. I have come across that understanding, I think, as well, because I've experienced what you just said. Some of my wires, they look like they're not coated, but I go to do the second process and I do get some voltage. So that to me just tells me that there has to be a coating there. Is that right?
Yes, but use the coating in the right way, and then you will see when you multiply it in boxes what you can do and what you can produce out of it. I keep on telling you lot, stop being so materialistic and physical. You got to learn to look beyond the physicality, understand the process.
Yes, I would like to continue here with a very quick question, because you said that the nanolayers are so fragile. There are companies that are selling what is called conductive gels or conductive aerogels. So this could be fixed on the nano coating. So the DMM should be connected to this, ending materials for not breaking the nano layers, but that will defeat the purpose.
I don't know. I never heard of it. I have no knowledge of this. You got to test it and let us know.
For example, yes, we can do that. The DMMs, in order to connect the LCD screen on the PCB board, have some sort of chewing gum, so to speak so, which is very soft, which is doped with silver or carbon. So when you press very gently the LCD, it will make electric contact, and you can send signal current. So I'm just wondering if instead of pressing the DMM against the wire, as you said, we can put a very soft conductive
maybe
polymer rubber.
Try it.
Okay.
I don't know. Try it. Let us know. That's why we run these workshops. Everything shouldn't come from here. We are learning from each other. So let us know there is something can be done. In the next few days, we will set up what I call a brain structure reactor, and it'll be very, very interesting. If we have enough material by the end of next week, we will show it here. We'll take some pictures of it, and we will start showing the operation of the what I call GAN system as a brain operation, system control. If it works, and if it does that, then for the first time, maybe we can show the real operation of the GANs layers, not only as layers, but as a collective, as a decision maker. This needs a little bit of thinking to build such a thing. But if I work it out next week or the week after or whatever, you will build system very much like the three-dimensional spherical reactor, and we'll see how we can transfer information across the boundary of one thing to another without electrical current. So if we think we can see our emotions, our fields can affect the structure of the material inside. We have the transparent balls. It's just that I've been waiting to produce enough materials. And if we can do that, then we'll show you the operation of a brain. And it'll be an emotional brain, not a physical brain. Then that'll be another eye-opening. Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. I think that would be very enlightening for a lot of people.
Yeah, now with 8 of us around the lab, and everyone is collectively working together and separately setting things up, the possibilities and demonstrations has become more frequent and more interesting. So next stage is showing micro and macro together. We show the nano layers in the pots, and we show the reactors running in the same kind of composition and positioning on the floor of the lab. And then you lot can learn what it is and how it is. But the whole thing goes back into the process of schizophrenic. That's why we put this workshop on. We got to look, and we are looking for, if you know anybody with a schizophrenic, any doctors, neurologists who work in that field, we don't prescribe any medicine, we won't make any systems. But we can show how correct the explanation and the work is. So the governments who are spending millions keeping people as a schizophrenic in the hospitals, which are really perfect people, that money can be spent somewhere else where it's more needed. Each schizophrenic costs tens of thousands of euros a year to keep. We are putting innocent people behind the bars, and we call them mental institutes. And that was the purpose of this workshop, to stop with another inhumane, or what do you call it, what the man never understood and carries on, keep on doing it. It will take years to go down the line. The first people will object to us will be the doctors who run these institutes, because now they're out of job. Then I become a criminal doing mental health, where I actually do explain the process of the creation. Because if they don't object to it, they have no jobs. There is no mental doctors or psychologists or psychiatric. The position will come from the medical, because 20 years of studying and going to university, now with this has gone down the chute. Next question.
I would like to refer to one of the video posted last week by the knowledge seekers, showing that...
Which one?
I'll explain it right now. With that production of electricity, and they were showing like a ventilator, and apparently the cell was able to give short impulses of current, and after that was discharging, so it was not able to produce current, how to say, constant output. So could you
Yeah,
maybe
that is the system. That's the system I built. You have a surface area, and as now you see the fat on the surface. That fat limits the rate of the absorption of the CO2 through the water to conversion to GANs. So that's why you have a limitation.
Okay, so the normal circumstances should be continuously.
If you don't generate fat, yes. I can make wires which they don't make fat. One of the easiest way, if you want to make a homogeneous non-copper oxide wires for your test, is Coca-Cola bottle. What you do nowadays, you strip your wires and you, what do you call it? You put them in a caustic. Instead of the electrode, go on the Keshe Foundation, Keshe Technology videos. We've shown this one, but nobody ever seen it. Nobody took up note of it. What you do, you make holes. You cut your wire to the length you want. You make 2 holes, and you put the head and tail of the core, the wire, in the Coca-Cola bottle instead of the electrodes. You do the same process. You put the caustic in, you shake your bottle, and you leave your bottle for 2 or 3 days. You come back, all you need to do, just to take the cover off, you have a perfect non-oxidized nanolayers. The duration you put in, decide the thickness, but at the same time, the compactness of the wire, plastic on the wire, will dictate the layers and the thickness of the layers on your wire. This process, I told you, you got to learn different ways. This is something none of you ever noticed. It's been in public for 5 or 6 years. You only look at the electrodes because you wanted to see energy. Take the wires out, take the holes you made for the electrodes, cut your wire to the size you want, make sure one end you find a way that doesn't get coated, that you can keep it, you don't need to scrape it off or do whatever else with it, and put it back into the Coca-Cola bottle hole. Seal it, put your caustic, you'll have a spider coming out of the bottle in a way. Or connect one end to the bottle and let the other loose end. Then you have a progressive division. Then you have different layers. You can use that for different materials because the end near the bottle is highly coated, creates different gravitational magnetic field, and the further end creates lower layers. It gives you different combination. When you use it in this caustic, it gives you totally a different spectrum of the gravitational field, and you absorb different things. So this is one of the other processes that nobody has ever noticed, but has been on the website. You're all running like a, what do you call it, dog chasing his tail. But in fact, everything is there for you to see. I don't interfere. I don't say you have to do it this way, that way. But the whole thing is there, even is in patterns. This is shown in the patterns. This gives you a homogeneous non-copper oxide system. Then cutting it, opening your wires, putting it in there. Cut your wires, put in the Coca-Cola bottle, fill the bottle, empty the bottle and leave it. You have a perfect non-oxidized system.
So regarding, because you are this subject into the big patent, what you are calling, it appears that different than the Coca-Cola experiments you were showing is something like a circular, very short cable that you call collector, through which the wire that is going inside the bottle goes. So I'm guessing that that should be like a ground electrode or something like this. It is labeled like 115.
No, I don't know. These patents are written nearly 10 years ago, and I haven't seen them. these patterns been done. A lot of these drawing has done the way Dirk Lorentzens thought he'll make it visual, and he's got a huge creative mind, that guy. So
like a washer
he has put a lot of things on.
that is outside the bottle, and the electrode that is going into the Coca-Cola bottle is going through that washer. Something like a ground electrode?
No, because when you put it, the reason for that is, again, understand the process. If you put, let's say, different washers or different nuts, or if you put your wire impartially through a, let's say, zinc ring or a pipe and the other part is not, you'll find out your coating is totally different when the ring, when the nuts, when the pipe is. You haven't understood that. This is again shows you haven't understood the whole concept. The gravitational magnetic field of the nut affects the coating and the layering and the thickness and the gravitational magnetic field in that layer. The next one is made of steel. That layer under the steel has different characteristic. The one which is a zinc pipe has a different characteristic. So these are for when you lot become more educated and start looking at the totality, not focused on one thing. The washer in there is not for ground. It shows that the layer inside is different. If in the future you can analyze the layers, you don't need to. This is the way your brain is made, and it's too early for you to understand. Even with nanomaterial, the GaNs materials, the layers decide. So your wire has different layers. Now you call it a resistor, a capacitor, so much capacitance, another capacitor. Now with the plasma technology, in the coating outside, the way you control it, you create different capacitors next to each other. Because nano layers are not created randomly. It starts from the bottom, from the beginning of the pipe, and it goes through along till the one next to it is not made. The next nano is not created. So you want a resistor, and then and a capacitor, and then you want another thing. You want a 10 ohm, 100 ohm, such a capacitor. From outside the coating, outside the material, by placing the right material of what you need, you dictate the coating composition. This is a composite layering diagonal along the wire, not through the wire. This is something you have to be educated. That's for the future. You look too much into physicality, one is Earth, no. This shown how you can change nano layers from externally to what you need. So in one piece of wire, you have everything you need for a radio. Because you change a capacitor, resistor, everything is done. This is how your brain works. This is too early for you to understand. You look at pictures, but you don't understand it.
Yes, you're right. Probably this is why we are asking some questions.
Yeah, that's why I'm here to explain, but don't run before you learn how to walk.
Okay, it's much clearer. Thank you.
Next question.
So it's Mr. Cash. So it's the hydroxide.
Yes.
That is the. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's the hydroxide that is the key.
No,
plus the different
you gotta
doping.
find out. No. You gotta find out what gives the reaction to create nano layers. We've been trying very hard for past everything we could think of to create a nano layer on the steel, and we can't do it. Every trick in the book John could come up with, we could think of. Heating it, boiling it, putting in the caustic, putting it back in salt. Everything be done to find a way to oxidize steel, to create a nanolayer on the steel, and we can't do it. One of you has coated it with copper plates. I was just talking while the work was going on this morning with Marco, that we zinc coat one of his reactors and chrome another one, because we cannot nano coat the steel. somebody knows how to do it, it will be very interesting. It saves us a lot of time and energy. Because everything at the moment is going through copper. Now I've discussed we're going to do a chrome and a nickel maybe, or something silver, that we can start the process, not all be the same. Then it'll be the same planet condition in all the reactors we run in the lab. And we need a difference.
Something I've noticed over the last day when I had a stainless steel pot on the stove and it ran out of water, and it burned the bottom of the pot and made it turn into sort of a blue. It blued the pot, they call it. It blued the steel, the stainless steel, and where it blued it, it'll actually corrode in that place. It actually creates a rusty sort of coating on that burnt area. So maybe the heat would be a way of treating the stainless to be able to have it accept a coating of some sort. Have you guys tried?
I think we tried that. We tried it, no? John tried it.
Mm-hmm.
We tried it, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Not with the stainless steel we have. We have 3 or 4 stainless steel with the reactors.
Yes, and there's several kinds of stainless steel too, with different materials in them.
We are looking at it. Something most probably we got to. There must be a way to nano release the atomic structure of the surface of the steel, but not found. If you scratch it, would it rust? But that will be only other places where it rusted.
Okay, we should probably start wrapping things up here. I was wondering if you had some final comments, Mr. Keshe, or other people from the Institute, on the schizophrenia topic that was the main focus on this medical side workshop here.
Not really. I think we put a point out. It's just how we can get this. If somebody can, write down what we said in a text form, send it to the foundation. We put it on the website. The way people downloaded ILS, they download and they understand. Because there is no more time to write books. If I start writing books, there will be never time to teach.
That's right. We'll do the transcript.
You work 20 hours a day.
The transcript, we have people working on transcripts for all the workshops, so we should have those together soon.
Yeah, if you can, let us have the transcript of just this workshop on the, the schizophrenic. Then, and don't put it as schizophrenic, we'll put it, the reality of it, in bracket the schizophrenic. The beautiful twin, that's what I always call them. Then we put it on site that a lot of people can read. Maybe we free a lot of people from the cage we have built for them ourselves unknowingly. Our biggest problem will come from the FDA, because now there is no more medicine to test. They're out of job, so they oppose us more than anybody else. This is what you call, the skeptics. These people who are skeptics and they're working very hard to bring the foundation down. We have gone into the detail of their incomes. They're all paid by pharmaceuticals in the background. The main incomes comes by pharmaceuticals hidden in their Swiss private accounts. We open their accounts and you find skeptics is another name for blocking by pharmaceutical. All the members of a skeptics group, which are working very hard in different countries, their wage package is paid by pharmaceutical. That's easier to get people to say, I'm a public, but in fact their Swiss bank accounts shows they are getting paid monthly 30,000 a year, 40,000 a year. We open their accounts. These are criminals acting as the group called as skeptics. There are a bunch of people, we have access to all their accounts, we've seen their accounts. They are wage paid by pharmaceuticals or the groups which they support, whether they front are normal people. You are criminals. You are criminals beyond. In the courts of Belgium, you open your names and your bank accounts. I want to know how long you're going to spend inside. Next question.
I think maybe we should wrap things up here. It's been 3 hours, and it's probably time to let you guys go. There's no more pressing questions.
What do you want the topic to be for next Thursday?
Well, gee.
Send it to us. Brainstorm it and we'll do it.
Okay, let's brainstorm. Yeah, we'll brainstorm it and present you with something.
Okay. Okay. Thanks very much. Have a nice day. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you for
Thank you.
everything.
Many thanks, Mr.
Thank you.
Cash.
Thank you, Mr. Cash.
All the knowledge. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Cash.
Thank you to you.
Bye.
And so
Bye.
ends.
Thank you, everybody.
So ends the 4th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, direct from the Spaceship Institute and all the knowledge seekers. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Bye for now.
Thanks, Rick. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Going for breakfast.